is Alan Chastney.
Tourism.
Toute la vie ou cette ici, à présent tout seul qu'on garder pour Jean-Mikou.
I live and breathe being solution.
Because I didn't know Miku.
I've only gone to Miku South for actually official meetings of the party.
À présent ou vle koui Mikou. Actuellement ou ka chanter en l'autre chanter.
I am looking forward to being in Miku South.
Just l'autre jour ou te ka di agricole pas ka fait pièce science.
Foreigners are not going to come and invest in a farm in St. Lucia.
I'm so committed to agriculture that I'm willing to put my own...
That surprises me, eh?
Are you going to be able to draw foreign investment in agriculture? No.
I want the people of Miku South, I want people in St. Lucia, all throughout St. Lucia, to know I am committed to agriculture. Green apple, golden apples.
Foreigners are not going to come and invest in a farm in St. Lucia. I'm not seeing it. And that's all we're saying, is that the choices and the areas that they have chosen to invest in would be different choices that a United Workers' Party government would make.
I've had choices since the day that I was born. There were voices that told me right from wrong.
Welcome back to Politically Incorrect. And yep, that was an ad that the Labour Party had. And somehow, like you said, it doesn't really matter. Somehow the Labour Party can never seem to convince farmers that it cares about them to the extent that the United Workers' Party seems to be able to do, even with the most plastic of candidates. And even though we've now had DSH and farmers seem to be being displaced when you think about pig farmers and the equine disease-free zone of DSH, farmers being moved for racetracks that are not going to make money, and we have food security issues. I mean, I was happy my mom got a bottle of honey just this weekend, but honey production seems to be down, not only because of pesticides people are using and stuff like that, but also displacement and so on. And I thought maybe I should get somebody who knows what he's talking about when it comes to agriculture to give me the lay of the land of what is happening in agriculture now. So good afternoon to you, Honorable Moses Musa Baptiste. I noticed that you did not get to speak in the House. And I just wanted to have you on, and I'm happy that you came in so that you can kind of give us an idea of what's going on in the sector.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. Let me say I thank God. I thank the people of Vieux North, my family, everybody who supports me, my constituency group, my team. And I wish to thank the people of Vieux North for once again giving me another opportunity to serve them. There's a lot of unfinished work to be done. But also to continue to serve St. Lucia. I'm very passionate about agriculture. I'm very passionate about creative industries and the arts. And I'm hoping that I can continue to debunk some of what the Prime Minister and the government continue to say about agriculture.
So, well, let's start off very simply. I don't see how DSH does not negatively impact farmers. I've heard about moving farmers. I'm trying to figure out, can you just, because I mean, I did agricultural science at St. Mary's and so on for CXC. And I don't know that you can just take farmers and just drop them somewhere else and so on. Tell me, is it something that the farmers are excited about? Is it something that is looked at as being good? Is it practical? Is it workable with 1,000 acres of land in Vieux Fort? Practically 1/5 of Vieux Fort is being given to one guy?
Well, certainly to analyze the DSH situation and the farmer situation, we have to take into account what happens in the area where the proposed DSH project, what happens in this area. First of all, Beauséjour occupies about 354 acres of land. And Beauséjour is a livestock station, and at that livestock station, farmers get services throughout St. Lucia.
Right,
farmers
I have an overlay
come
for
from
that,
all over the place to receive services at Beauséjour. Beauséjour has had its share of disappointments over the years. But the government of St. Lucia, when we were in office, received a grant of over $3 million to begin the reorganization of Beauséjour. That grant was from the IPSA group of governments, India, South Africa, Brazil, and we actually received some monies, and we were already using the money to purchase cement, for example. We were working with the Ministry of Infrastructure to reorganize the whole infrastructure of Beauséjour. We're going to build a new building for an office complex for Beauséjour. And if anyone is to go to Beauséjour now, I heard a minister saying There is nothing at Beauséjour. If you go to Beauséjour, even now, you will notice that there are greenhouses. That is part of the Youth in Agriculture
right,
project.
I have an overlay for that, guys.
Yes. There's also an area where tractors and other implements are kept, again, part of the Youth project. You will also find that there is a pen for new breeds of sheep and goats that we purchased when we were in government as part of the IBSA project. You will also find
DSH overlay.
That there is a whole aquaculture pond that was constructed. We have the meat processing facility, over $22 million spent, and we have some of the best pastures in St. Lucia.
So how do
at Beauséjour.
So then, for example, how do farmers feel when Ezekiel has literally conceded that they're going to knock down? I do not know who's going to pay for that, right? Knock down the meat processing plant, right? Which already was not the greatest of ideas that they had, but it was their idea, and you all have basically made the best of it. And then they knock down the meat processing plant, and after they knock it down, they say they're going to put a Lapo one in cul-de-sac. What's the feedback?
Well, certainly the idea of the meat processing facility or the abattoir, that idea has been there from 1999. There was a study that was conducted, and the international organizations indicated that we can have a meat processing facility, but they did not support a meat processing facility of that size at the current location. We have learned that since the United Workers' Party came back to office, the Minister for Agriculture, Ezekiel Joseph, has indicated that the livestock farmers in St. Lucia cannot produce enough livestock to supply the meat processing facility.
Why?
Which is ludicrous. The same meat processing facility that they built using Taiwanese funds. It's really ludicrous. The thing about it is, this meat processing facility is ready to go. When we came into office, there were a number of deficiencies that we had to correct. We had to use additional funds to correct the deficiencies in the meat processing facility. All of the equipment we put in there, the utilities, water, electricity, and this $22 million meat processing facility is ready to go. It is not very strange because the government is doing everything possible to remove whatever obstacles that are there to facilitate DSH and TO hacking. So it doesn't matter what is there and what can benefit the people of St. Lucia. In fact, the meat processing facility can create employment, sustainable employment for possibly hundreds of livestock farmers in the south of St. Lucia and in St. Lucia on the whole. So it is an opportunity that we will certainly lose. And the creation of two abattoirs in the north of St. Lucia, in the cul-de-sac area, clearly certainly cannot do what the meat processing facility was intended for.
So then, okay, so they're looking at the DSH land, and I want to run the rest of the overlay. But with the DSH lands, you've been on the ground, you're in the constituency. The rest of the farmers that are there, considering you were pushing toward food security, right? How are they impacted?
Well, clearly, with DSH, it is not only the 354 acres plus the other 600 or so acres that will be removed from obviously the farmers will not be able to use. But there is something that farmers are very concerned about, and not only people who farm for a living, but other individuals who do subsistence farming. They are very concerned and worried about this equine disease-free zone, which is clearly an area around the racetrack, possibly 3 miles, where a number of animals will not be kept. And because of the regulations that have been established by the international organization that controls and directs world animal health, clearly there needs to be an area demarcated around the racetrack where certain animals that are capable of hosting, diseases that could affect thoroughbred horses will not be kept. In the DSH agreement, the government clearly agrees that they will demarcate this area and they will cause legislation to be put in the parliament to enforce that. So farmers in the Opicon area, in the Black Bay area, in the Pierrot, Vieux, Bellevue area, those farmers are clearly asking questions about the equine disease-free zone that the government has not been able to answer satisfactorily. They say that there is this equine disease-free zone will simply be around the racetrack. But that is not what the literature is saying. Everything we've read That is not what it's saying.
It's not only that, but I mean, even the cursory research that I've done suggests that you have to bring in entomologists. They have to check insects. You have to check everything. For example, Nancy was on Newspin a couple of weeks ago saying she's a pig farmer and nothing is going to affect. And to be honest, the conversation I had with the late Trim, literally 2 days before his passing, he was saying that the whole of St. Lucia is an equine disease-free zone because we don't have a lot of the diseases. So I took him at his word on that. And he said, we don't have to worry about cows, we have to worry about pigs. Now, to my mind, I think of certain areas of the South, particularly around your constituency, that do have pig farmers. And she herself said that she's a pig farmer. So I'm trying to figure out where do they go? Is there any other part of St. Lucia that has the level of arable land that is vacant for these farmers to be moved to?
Well, there are areas around St. Lucia that the government would certainly have to purchase. The government would certainly, if the government wants to relocate the whole Beauséjour farm, they clearly will have to purchase something like 370 acres of land that is flat, land that is fertile, because if you're going to replace the Beauséjour farm, you certainly need very good pastures. And when I heard the Prime Minister say nothing was happening at Beauséjour, all those lands were useless, it clearly goes to ignorance of the Prime Minister in relation to what is valuable. Beauséjour had some of the best pastures that you can find anywhere in the Caribbean, and potential pastures. And for the sake of food security and the development of the livestock subsector, you need an area with hundreds of acres possibly of viable pastures that you can develop good grasses and so on, so that your animals can be well fed. The effect of just people holding animals in their yards, a kind of practice that rural people in the Vieux Fort North area, in the Labrie area, in parts of Vieux Fort, that is a practice that you find where people hold animals, whether it is sheep or goats and so on, as part of their life, part of their subsistence living. And that too will be impacted by what the DSH proposes to do. All of the areas around the stadium in Vieux Fort, where a number of farmers have animals. There are farmers who have cattle in the pastures right next to the Hiwanura International Airport. And for the United Workers' Party, that means nothing to them. I do not know how they are going to accommodate all of those farmers who have a number of heads of cattle right there in the pastures next to what we call the Kakabef. And there's a reason why this place is called Kakabef, because of the number of animals that are being held in that area.
And defecate on the racetrack.
Right.
Okay, so now, to be honest, I can't see how this massive displacement does not affect the efforts toward food security. When I was working with government, I heard that the food import bill was something like $350 million, right? I do not know. I remember you all were making strides towards things like root crops like cassava and stuff like that, production. But as we are now, with the loss of that land, and even if they find suitable lands in an alternative area, right? I just saw that something about pilot projects about the production of onions and so on. Won't there be, even in the transition period, a serious loss of food production in terms of DSH?
Well, certainly. I believe in terms of food production, the DSH proposed project will affect mainly livestock farmers, because that whole area is certainly a livestock production area. There are other areas in the general Beauséjour area where there is crop production going on. The greenhouses, certainly you have rabbit production happening. There's even a gentleman who's producing grapes.
Yeah.
The grapes that we import, there's a gentleman in that area who's producing grapes. And you have the honey producers, the Horizon Brothers, a group of bee farmers from the Grace Vieux Fort North area. They have been written to, and they've been asked to vacate the area. So a number of food security issues certainly will come to the fore with this DSH project. I must also say that when we started negotiations with T.O.R. King and the rest, it was never the intention of the then government to allow DSH and T.O.R. King to have all of that land. It was always the intention to work on the racetrack, and certainly suitable alternatives would have been found. But what has happened now is that all of the land has been given to DSH. Even the meat processing facility, the DSH people had agreed after much negotiation. They had agreed, and I was around the table. And when I speak about DSH, I'm very passionate because I was there. I was in the cabinet room, one of the ministers who sat around with Theo Aking and them, and they agreed that they would not touch the meat processing facility.
And there were also stakeholders there as well.
Yes, there were also stakeholders, the National Trust. There were people from Vieux. So when people say this thing was a secret, that is not true at all. There were partners there discussing this. We had more than one meeting. And at the second meeting, Theo Aking himself said, okay, if the minister doesn't want us to remove the meat processing facility, we will leave the meat processing facility. But you cannot slaughter pigs there. And the learned veterinarians, if you speak with them, they will say to you that they find it puzzling that DSH people are saying that there should be no pigs. Because as far as they're concerned, the transferability of disease from pigs to horses is very unlikely. We believe that there may be other reasons why they don't want pigs to be around DSH. And some of it, we believe in our research, has to do with religion. We believe, and it's something that some people have not been talking about, there are some people who are suggesting that maybe the reasons why they don't want pigs around is because of religion. And we are doing more research on this. And there are suggestions that particular partners in DSH may belong to certain religious denominations that don't want pigs around. So we find, as this thing unfolds, there are so many questions. Why are they focused on pigs? Why is it that they don't want pigs anywhere near DSH? Why? And the veterinarians whom I have spoken to, and they can come out in public and say so, they say that transferring diseases from pigs to horses is very, very, very unlikely. In fact, it's easier for the other ruminants, because a pig is a monogastric animal, and it's easier for the other ruminants, animals that chew their cud, just like the horses. It is possibly more likely. So there are lots of questions that we need to ask.
So then, that brass tacks question. You go down to Vieux Fort, people say they see all the bumper stickers, pro-DSH. I see it as mindless and people that are not reading the framework agreement and so on. What is the mood? Because some people say it's a wait and see. Some people say it's about they want development. And apparently this government has been very effective in selling the argument that we have evolved out of since probably the 80s, that development has to come at the expense of the environment. So my question is now, what is the mood with regard to not only the farmers, but in general? It seems like, I honestly, I cannot get a read as to whether people are like, you know what, whatever, just let them do whatever, or are people genuinely freaking out? Because the more that you read, the more concerned, at least I know I get.
Well, I believe, you go around the constituencies in the south, Vieux Fort North constituency, Vieux Fort South, Labrie, Choiseul, and so on, and you speak to ordinary people, and I get the feeling that as time goes by, people are becoming more and more alarmed. As information gets to them, they're becoming more and more alarmed. The people say to you, yes, we want jobs, but is it really true that the government is taking all of this land? There are lots of people who simply don't believe that the government is going to do that. And you speak to them and they say to you, Musa, that can never happen, man. That's not true. The government will not give Murray Islands and so on. I don't believe that. I think those guys are just bluffing. So I get the sense that a lot of people, especially when you speak to young people, they tell you, we want jobs. Yeah, man, we want those jobs and so on. When you explain to them the whole issue about the jobs, they still tell you, I don't believe that. I don't believe the government will come and take all of the stadium. Yes, we had that will happen, but you think they will really do that? So there is some kind of reality check that needs to happen, because there are people who do not believe that, in spite of all of what's happening, there are people who don't believe that Prime Minister Chasney and his cabinet will be so brazen to just take the stadium. But as I said, more and more, as time goes by, people are beginning, you can sense that people are becoming more and more concerned.
But for me, I'm starting to realize that it's a modus operandi. You say something, then you say it's not that bad, or you say it's not going to happen, the news cycle moves on. So, for example, you'll say, well, they're not taking Sandy Beach, right? They're not taking Sandy Beach. Prime Minister said, no, Sandy Beach is to remain a national park. And then you realize it is Sandy Beach, you see the skyscrapers and everything. And then they say, well, no, it's not Sandy Beach. It might just be, whatever, a month or two passes, just like with the Dolphin Park. Everybody believes the Dolphin Park thing is dead. and the man has registered his company in St. Lucia. It's the same way that now, for example, you see all these different drawings and Theo King telling you anything you want to hear. He changed it. They did 30 renderings. They changed this to the water table might sink and roads might collapse in Vieux Fort. But that's okay because the project is this, that, and the other. And by the time that is done, as almost like a quennerism, that basically the new tactic is that you just give mixed stories for a couple of months and you rely on the misinformation. And people then now are left to choose to believe what they want to believe. Now, for me, what I would like you to speak to, because I don't know the figures, I have been given some figures and I have done some research. First of all, I have a clip with an overlay of what's happening at Vieux Fort Fisheries. I understood that the guys fishermen have not been paid from February, and that they let go the cleaning staff at fisheries in Vieux Fort, the fisheries complex that Dr. Anthony had built, and that fisheries is in a state right now. So between that and also any of the configurations of the drawings that you have seen, how will it affect the mangrove, the coral reefs that apparently protect Vieux Fort from flooding and other natural disasters, and also I'd like you to speak to the net jobs. In other words, the jobs that I see as being lost for the jobs that they say are going to be created.
Well, certainly we can speak to the issues around fisheries. I was minister with responsibility for fisheries for 4.5 years. And what we know is that the southeast coast of St. Lucia, you can take it all the way from Dennery, going all the way down to Vieux Fort. This is a very important coast in relation to whether you talk about coral reefs, whether you talk about the role of the mangroves, or whether you talk about artisanal fisheries, whether you talk about what people commonly call pot fishing, whether you talk about sea eggs, whether you talk about lobsters, and whether you talk about so many of the species that we eat depend on healthy coral reefs, and the southeast coast of St. Lucia is a viable area that must be protected. First of all, there are many fishers who depend solely on the southeast coast, not even pelagic fishery, meaning going out in what they call go and glow, out there to fish. Many families, hundreds of families, and we can break them down. For sea moss alone, and that's another part of the southeast coast in terms of the jobs that are created around the southeast coast, what we refer to as mariculture. There is sea moss farming, and between Parliamentary, the Savans Bay area, and you go around Labrie, there are close to 200 sea moss farmers, people who use sea moss as a source of income. And if you talk about the sea moss farmers, you want to talk about the sea moss processors. There are sea moss processors from Parliamentary, Dennery, in Vieux Fort North, you have Dak Moss, and you have so many other processors that have developed out of sea moss farming from the southeast coast. You go to the supermarkets, you see dried sea moss, and you see bottled sea moss in the supermarkets. And those people are not just doing that, they're working with the Bureau of Standards. So there's a whole industry that has developed just around sea moss. You talk about, for example, pot fishery. You talk about people who build fish pots. And during the season for fish pot, the fish pot fishery, you have so many fishers and their families who depend on that. You also want to talk about the Vieux Fort Fisheries Complex. And
we have an overlay for that.
And a lot of what is happening at the Vieux Fort Fisheries Complex depends on the health of the coral reef. It also depends on the health of the seagrass beds. It depends on what is happening within the ecosystem around Maria Islands and so forth.
And look at the state of it now.
Now, what has happened there is that it's the same thing. Politics come into play. The United Workers' Party is mashing up and breaking up everything. And the state of the fisheries complex is what it is today because there are no systematic cleaning. There's no systematic cleaning taking place. When we got into office, the Vieux Fort Fisheries Complex was also in a state. There were no lamps. There was no light in the fisheries complex in terms of illuminating and lighting up the place at night. We had to work with the fisheries, the management of the fisheries complex, to put lights there. We also had to work with the Fishers Cooperative in Vieux Fort to see how best we can reorganize what takes place at the fisheries complex. We had discussions with the Japanese, and in 2014, 2015, into 2016, we were able to get $14 million worth of support to reorganize, to have a new ice machine, and that is there now, to change the refrigerants in the coolers there. That went on to Dennery, where we have a solar-powered system at Dennery. Ancillary also got some assistance. And we injected money into the Vieux Fisheries Complex because we know the capacity of this complex to generate employment. Just imagine with a DSH and with T.O. Aking coming and destroying all of the coral reef and all of what's happening on the southeast coast. Not only will they be destroying the ecosystem and jobs that have to do with water quality and sea moss farming, that have to do with outside of direct fisheries, touristic activity coming out of the project that's been done by the National Trust with the Maria Islands and so on. They will destroy hundreds of jobs simply as a result of this DSH project. First of all, you will not be able to go around Maria Island. The fishers will not be able to use their fish pots during the season to go do their fish pot fishery. And we haven't spoken about sea eggs.
Now, I myself have gotten a couple of calls from farmers, from fishermen, who are also very upset about the gas increase. A 60% increase in gas, a $1.50 excise tax on gas. How do you think that, what do you see as the major implications with regard to the fishermen in terms of their ability to sustain themselves going out?
Well, the St. Lucia Labour Party has always placed a high premium on the fisheries subsector. Very quickly, it is the St. Lucia Labour Party that built the Vieux Fisheries Complex and others around the country. When we got into office the last time, we increased the rebate that is being given to boat owners when they purchase gas by 100%. In other words, that rebate could have been used for disaster mitigation and so on. And this government has now imposed a 60% increase in the gas tax. And I've done some calculations. If we take one fisher who goes out to sea for 40 weeks in the year, just 40 weeks in the year, not 52, 40 weeks in the year, most of those fishers burn what is called a cans. They call it cans, but it's 15 gallons in a tank. They go out to sea, they might burn 2 of them, or sometimes 3 of them. So let's assume they burn 2. I'm not even using 3. Let's assume they burn 2. My calculations have shown that in 1 year, one fisher who only burns 2 of those 15 gallon tanks of fuel will be paying $10,000 more in taxes. $10,000 more, and you can calculate it.
To fix the roads.
Yes, and that $10,000 is just for one fisher. And you can calculate, you can go to the fishers and ask them how many gallons of gas do they burn for a fishing trip. And multiply that by $1.50, and then you multiply it by the number of weeks in the year, and you will find out the increase in taxes that fishers themselves pay. Fishers arguably use the most fuel in the country. If you compare what the fishers use to what the minibus drivers use or the taxi drivers use, arguably they are one of those, together with the minibus drivers, who use a lot of fuel. And so that will certainly impact the savings of a fisherman. And just imagine $10,000 in additional taxes for the year. So and the fishers are saying, well, if you're going to fix the roads with it, where are the roads in the sea that you're going to fix? If that is your argument.
Maybe T.O. Aking will build some roads in the sea. I already heard about taking the causeway and making so it could open and close. But it is interesting. I wish there were some real journalists, not like myself, that were going out and interviewing some of the fishermen or some of the people whose livelihoods will be affected, whether it's positive or negative, by things like, just like with the dolphinarium. I wish the National Trust had people who, whether it is tour operators for marine life in its natural habitat, or the fishermen in terms of asking them how will it affect them in terms of the fish nursery and so on. But this is politically incorrect. When we come right back, we'll be dealing with the Fish Marketing Board, the Fish Marketing Corporation, and the Marketing Board. We'll be back.
Really, I don't believe you. I can still see the cheddar cheese bits on your mouth. Lucky for you, everyone else loves Snyder's of Hanover pretzels. They brought every size and flavor.
Taste how great a pretzel can be with Snyder's of Hanover pretzels. A healthy, low-calorie snack for all occasions. Packaged in a variety of shapes, sizes, and extraordinary flavors. Now available at supermarkets island-wide. Agents in St. Lucia, Rennick & Company. Shopping the world for you.
Get ready, set for school with the Educator and Educator Plus loans from the St. Lucia Civil Service Cooperative Credit Union. No more stress to pay for school or supplies. Borrow from $500 to $20,000 and enjoy low repayments starting from $25. As a special gift, 2 lucky members who apply to win will have their loan paid in full. Call or visit the St. Lucia Civil Service Cooperative Credit Union for your Educator or Educator Plus loan today. Terms and conditions apply.
Your car is where you start. We got it all at Automotive Art. Tires, rims, and accessories. Everything your car needs. We're the Automotive Superstore and more. Automotive Art, Automotive Art. Your car, our passion. Automotive Art.
Get more with our new Massey Card partner, Diamond Girl. Earn 1 point on every $3 spent at all their locations in Cass Trees, JQ Shopping Mall, and Vieux. Plus, redeem points at Massey stores for vouchers to use as payments at any Diamond Girl location. Enjoy the many benefits that your Massey Card can bring. So, see you at Diamond Girl, where you earn 1 point on every $3 spent. Visit www.masseycard.com for more partners.
Looking for a professional building maintenance services company? Call Lewis Industries Limited.
We are the experts on flooring solutions, restoring all types of natural stone floors, including stripping, sealing, buffing, scrubbing, and polishing of all types of resilient floors. We also clean and shampoo all types of carpets and rugs and offer non-skidding products for your slippery tiles. With over 26 years experience, Lewis Industries is the industry leader. We offer washroom supplies and environmentally friendly cleaning and restoration for residential, commercial, and industrial properties. We also distribute a wide range of janitorial equipment and washroom accessories. Ask about our specialty services, including pressure washing, mold and mildew cleaning, and more. Professional, reliable, affordable. Lewis Industries Limited, the name you can trust.
Was established in 1968 to solve food and marketing deficiencies which existed at the time. The primary purpose of the board was to encourage agriculture production and facilitate the distribution of farm produce from farmers to the final consumers. Over the years, particularly during the 90s and the early 2000s, the marketing board was the primary farm gate purchaser across the island. This is no longer the case. Massey stores, as well as other ad hoc farm produce purchasing and distribution companies, coupled with direct interactions between hoteliers and farmers, has resulted in a diminished position of the marketing board. Currently, it handles approximately only 2% of the total produce of farmers. Consecutive years of losses have now rendered the board virtually obsolete, although its liabilities continue to burden taxpayers. The liabilities in 2014 were in excess of $2 million. The farmers are also dissatisfied with the board, highlighting low and non-guaranteed prices, arbitrary grading standards, and unreliable pickup services as just a few of the many complaints. Madam Speaker, the St. Lucia Marketing Board cannot be allowed to continue down this path, and a determination must be made on its future. Through the years, several reports have been prepared making recommendations from closure of the board to restructuring of the shareholdings to full privatization. We've decided to solve this issue by winding up the operations of the board within the upcoming financial year.
And here's another example, St. Lucia. Ezekiel says restructuring does not mean closing. The Prime Minister says winding up operations. And for me, what I would like to ask the former minister, and I'm asking you directly, Is this just another conflict of interest situation where the Prime Minister is, I mean, I'm not saying that marketing boards may not have had problems or issues or structural adjustments in terms of how they operated needed to be made. But my question is this just another facilitation of Jamaican and other conflicts of interest where, from what I'm understanding, there are numbers of farmers who have lost their contracts with a number of the hotels because interests close to the Prime Minister now are doing all produce purchases around the island. Is this what you get a feedback? Is this true or is this complete crap?
Well, certainly I believe that the Prime Minister's approach and this government's approach is to fold up the marketing board because, as he said, $2 million in liabilities. Now, when you compare $2 million in liabilities to the liabilities of all these other agencies that the government is pumping millions of dollars into, you want to ask yourself, where is the focus? Whether the government is truly focused on agriculture. What I believe is happening is what in the industry, in many industries, is referred to as vertical integration. That there are many companies that are now structured to supply the hotels. And if those companies are supplying the hotels, most of their supplies come from overseas. And what they're trying to do is to cut costs by vertically integrating all of the processes. So I believe this government is trying to vertically integrate by giving the assets of the marketing board to a private company so that they can use the storage, the chillers, and all of the physical assets of the marketing board to vertically integrate the services into the hotels. The same thing with the Fish Marketing Corporation. We believe that's what the government wants to do, to use the assets, the donated assets of the Fish Marketing Corporation, donated by Canada in the very first one in Castries, and the Japanese government for most of it. Just recently, the Japanese government donated $14 million to fisheries. And they want to use all of these physical assets and vertically integrate so that you have a private company not caring too much about the jacks and the tuna and the duad that the local fisherman brings in, but using the physical assets to import very cheap fish from overseas to vertically integrate into the hotels. But we believe that's what the government wants to do.
But that's even worse. I had heard that, well, my information from the source has not been wrong so far, was that a meeting was held somewhere around May 15th, that was held between the Prime Minister's father and a Trinidadian investor that wanted to bring down 200 greenhouses, and they brought in the gold farmers for one of the meetings, and then the other meeting was a private meeting. And also that there, like I said, there are interests tied directly to this government that now have contracts for Sandals and the other hotels. So a lot of the farmers who have their mortgages and everything with Bankers St. Lucia, First National, even the Development Bank and so on, have lost their contracts. Is that what is happening on the ground?
We have heard that many farmers have lost their contracts. We had a very interesting experience with the St. Lucia Hotel and Tourism Association between 2014 and 2016, where they kept their promise, and I say so publicly all the time. Mr. Destang and his team kept the promise where they employed Miss Ismail, I believe she's still employed, and they were creating this virtual clearinghouse and connecting farmers directly to the hotels, and it was working very well. But we are learning that things are changing a bit where some farmers have lost their contracts because those large companies are doing the sourcing for the hotels. We are hoping that the initiative by the St. Lucia Hotel and Tourism Association, together with the Ministry of Agriculture, we are hoping that this initiative is actually strengthened. But I just want to say that it is really, it is crazy for any government, and in particular governments of the developing countries, the Eastern Caribbean, the wider Caribbean, to allow all of its supply, its food supply chains to be controlled by private interests. This is something that no government should allow to happen. When we were in office, there are a number of initiatives that we took to ensure that we boost local production of local food, and the records will show. If you go to the Social and Economic Review, this is the one for 2016, but there is one for every year, 2011, 2012, and so on, and you can read the Social Economic Review and see our results, where, for example, in our diversification program, supermarket purchases increased by close to 1.5 million. We also increased hotel purchases. Hotels purchase 4 times the quantity of produce and in revenue than when Ezekiel Joseph was Minister for Agriculture in the last term. The figures are there. When he was there over the 4 to 5 years, he increased it only by $496,000. In our time, ours increased 4 times from this $496,000 to over $6 million in revenue in terms of what the hotels purchase. So ours and domestic purchases, which is very important, we were able to increase it from $3 million to over $6 million in revenue for local farmers. And how did that happen? Through partnerships with ICA, with FAO, and with other organizations. And when I was Minister for Agriculture, the focus was on marketing and not just telling farmers, go and produce bananas. The focus was on what is it the market wants? What do the supermarkets want? What do the St. Lucians like to eat, and what quality and at what price? And we focused on that, and you saw the results. We helped the poultry farmers with their quota, and you saw an increase in chicken production. You saw an increase in egg production. So the marketing board, we still believe, has a pivotal role to play. And in our mind, the role had to do with ensuring that there is quality local produce on the market and also regional exports.
So bottom line is, you think that it's being conveniently torpedoed for conflict of interest or private interest, as opposed to, like I said, he makes it sound bad and nobody's saying that it's great, but that it was fixable or in many ways. I'd like to open the lines. We're going to go a bit over time because we do want to get your calls in. We open the lines at 456-0306. But in all of this, and I even heard Alva Baptiste reading out a list of all of the things, or many of the things that the Labour Party has done. I do not know if it is the legacy of Sir John, but obviously I do not think anybody would mistake this current Prime Minister for somebody who believes in agriculture, when it looks like he's basically just trying to turn this whole country into a hotel. My question to you is, still for that, you do not get the farmers' support in the ballot box. Why do you think that is? And even now?
I think it has to do with public relations, and I've said so before, from way back when, the St. Lucia Labour Party, when it comes to agriculture, and other sectors too. I believe the St. Lucia Labour Party has this thing of, let us work for the people and the people will understand. I have said so openly to my party and to others that has always been the modus operandi. Labour Party does things, and for them, if you're giving laptops to children and if you're building secondary schools, you should do it because it's necessary and not necessarily use it as a promotional tool. And I believe over the years we have suffered from that. The Labour Party has done, in fact, when United Workers' Party was formed in 1964, I keep saying all the time, there were over 10,000 banana farmers already in the SLVGA. Long before the United Workers' Party was formed, the St. Lucia Labour Party, under George Charles, developed this banana industry. It was not United Workers' Party. And so there are lots of those misconceptions that are going around that we as a party, even though I came not too long ago, but we as a party need to debunk and work very hard on to ensure that people know the truth.
Good afternoon. This is Politically Incorrect.
Hey, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
And good afternoon to your guest.
Yep.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah. Chris, sometime about 2 weeks ago, in fact, to be exact, the first day of the holiday, which was Corpus Christi, right? I happened to, I was in the south, and I happened to drive, sometimes it's good to go to certain places to really, really appreciate, the arguments and what is happening. And I happened to go to Boseju there, where that place, what's the name of that new place that the Taiwanese...
The meat processing plant.
Right.
Right.
Sometimes we can stay, like in gasseries, and we can listen to all the arguments, and then we still cannot get a good, we cannot get a good understanding of what is happening. Sometimes you need to go to the area. And so I went to that place there, and when I saw that structure that was built, I cannot understand how, a government could decide where they're going to break down a structure that has not, it ain't even open yet, right?
No. Break it down to make a Lapo one in cul-de-sac.
But I cannot understand that. I cannot understand that. To mash up a structure like that costs how much money?
About $22 million.
$22 million.
And who's paying for it to be mashed up? Because we all know Tewa King don't have money. So
and it seems to me on the other side there now, the parliamentary representative there with you, Moses, right? I noticed that they clear up on the other side. There and there's a something like a huge pit or something like that. Is it to deposit the structure that they're going to build there, that they're going to break down?
If it is on the same side with the meat processing plant, that is an aquaculture pond. That is part of the youth. That's part of the youth.
But isn't that the same place that they are clearing up? They began clearing up because I saw equipment there and all.
Okay, well, you're talking about the DSH site.
Exactly, on the other side there.
Yes. That's that.
So I'm wondering that huge pit I see they build there, they dug there, right? Is it to deposit what they're going to break down?
Well, I don't know what they're doing actually.
But all in all, St. Lucians will never get a proper understanding of what these people want to do there, and it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable to see that huge structure there for them people to think of breaking it down when they have not even really started operation there yet,
Understood,
and that's real madness. To be honest, it's real madness.
Well,
because whatever they're looking to do, they're looking to construct there, it's not even sure.
Not only that, it's sure to be a lost leader. It's sure to be a bait or enticement.
Exactly.
So you take out youth
and
in
I think
agriculture
that's
for that.
working on our minds again as St. Lucians. You see, there's the artist impression, like what the artist impression that
renderings
of the.
The
these
drawings,
things sound, I don't think it's me alone that thing. When you look at these things, it's really attracts you, And people, I think a lot of people buying into these kind of things, not realizing, well, boy, these things may never even finish, And boy, I think, the only way St. Lucians can get a better appreciation, get a proper understanding of what the madness that these people want to do down in the south there, is to go down there and see the things that are already in place, and these people want to mash it up, and look to start something that they're not even sure that it will be completed.
Thank you, caller.
All right.
I want to ask, I'm asking as the district representative of Vieux Fort North and also perhaps the district representative of Vieux Fort South, that based on the information that you all have, if you all would invite the media to come down, all of the different television stations, even radio stations, and even some of the personalities, to come down to Vieux Fort, let a coaster take them around to all of the affected areas. Perhaps they themselves can speak off the cuff to some of the different fishermen and farmers and so on, and show the impact that this whole thing would have. Because I do believe that he has a serious point about a lot being lost in translation. And you see, you hear one politician, you come, you speak in the Labour Party, and then you hear the United Workers' Party, Ezekiel will speak. Look at that. The Prime Minister said, wind up the operations of the Marketing Board and the Fish Marketing Corporation. But Ezekiel is saying something softer, where he's saying, restructure, we're going to look at. And people get lost in between that. Good afternoon. This is Politically Incorrect.
Yes, good afternoon, Christopher.
Good afternoon.
And good afternoon, Mr. Jabates.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, Christopher, just before your first caller, there is something, and it is something that I have said to a lot of the Labour Party people as well, and seems nobody is listening. Christopher, there is so much history, rich history, of this St. Lucia Labour Party, but I do not know, maybe because of the time that the Labour Party had spent in opposition, and the Labour Party has not been that good in terms of educating their base as far as the history of the Labour Party is concerned. When you look around, the Josies, the current General Secretary of the United Workers' Party, they all was in the bosom of the St. Lucia Labour Party. And at the advent of we St. Lucians, most St. Lucians not reading or being just subservient in terms of the history of what has happened in this country, when you hear some of those people speak, like the era of 1979, it was something that was strictly done, and it was because of, at the time, what had happened, what had transpired with St. Lucian's that they took, and now, you know, because let me say something. I am not there to put a pitch for them, because I am so sick and tired of even both parties. Because sometimes you hear Minister Guy Joseph and the others are saying so much things. Honorable Baptiste, I think the Labour Party is a great party. The Labour Party had that newspaper at one time, and the Labour Party has had those stalwarts, even the late George Charles and whatnot. And currently they have enough of persons who can rewrite the history of the St. Lucia Labour Party. And I think we have the Labour Party, not we, but the Labour Party has not been very good at disseminating the history of the St. Lucia Labour Party. I may have sounded very passionate this afternoon. I try to be as level-headed, but especially with the debacle that has been going on at this point in time in the country. And if you hear them speak, it's everybody attacking, and not speaking the truth. Honorable Baptiste, the onus is on, because what is going to happen in Vieux, I am telling you, in the next 10 or 15 years, you will have a revolt where even you all as politicians who are engaged now, our grandchildren will not be kind to you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Kola. What are your greatest concerns for agriculture right now? Under Ezekiel, first of all, I remember they were talking about bananas going over to Martinique. I didn't understand logistically how it was possible. To me, if you have to get bananas into Martinique, you have to go through France. The Prime Minister used it, and 2 days before the election, myself and my father, we got this, and it worked, obviously, because he's in. But to be honest with you, behind all of the queneristics, what's going on?
I believe my greatest fear and concern about the current Minister for Agriculture, Ezekiel Joseph, is that he does not understand agriculture. He does not understand modern day agriculture. He does not understand, based on, and I'm saying so based on what he says, based on what he presents in the Parliament.
What about what he did? What about his performance?
And also based on his performance. It is very clear that Minister Ezekiel Joseph's performance is strictly based on production. His idea about agriculture is production. I am very market-led. I believe in market-led agriculture. I believe in encouraging people to eat what we grow, but not simply because it is from St. Lucia, but because it is of great quality and the price is right. And you can see the evidence of what we did when I was Minister for Agriculture, not only with the crop subsector, but also with the fisheries subsector. You saw what we did with trying to encourage Savants Bay, for example, to get a jetty, simply because those people walked in the sea at 4 in the morning from the time they were born. And there was never a jetty for them to bring up the boats. What happened at Prale? You can see what we did with mariculture, which is the pushing of sea moss. And you can also see what we did with the labeling and trying to market food at the supermarket, going into areas like cassava in a serious way, into honey production in a serious way, looking at the market, going into ensuring that the retrofitting of Angers and Fonasson, so that the farmers and the producers can produce something that can be sold in St. Lucia. I believe he's more about production. Look at what he's saying about bananas. Going all around the country and just telling St. Lucian farmers to go and plant bananas without analyzing the relationships among Windfresh and the NFTO, and whether the government cannot have the NFTO licenses. And what are they going to do to ensure that banana farmers produce a quality fruit that can be sustained? It's not just about producing bananas. We can produce 100,000 tons of bananas tomorrow. But can you produce 100,000 tons of bananas that can be sold in the market consistently? And I think that's where his problem is.
Good afternoon. This is Politically Incorrect.
Hello, good afternoon, Christopher.
Good afternoon.
And good afternoon, your guest.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
I want to deviate a little from your topic concerning agriculture and creative industries as in regards to past Minister Baptiste. I want to shift gears a little to the halls of justice being relocated to Banadil. But Chris, what's that? Shifting the halls of justice not going to make no difference, you know, because the average man, the small man, can't get no justice here.
Well, they say justice is a business. Maybe if the lawyers like their work environment better, they'll come to work more often. Maybe, but you still wouldn't necessarily get justice. Go ahead, caller. Hello.
No justice, no peace, Christopher. You can't be operating in an environment where the little man, the average Joe Blow, cannot go appeal to the court for certain things, and it's been 10 years, 10 years, he can't get no kind of thing. And then you hear, well, boy, it just takes somebody to court and he get settlement in the matter, baby, $40,000, Christopher. Shifting the House of Justice is not going to make any difference to the psyche of these St. Lucians as in regards the law and maintaining and upkeeping the law. It looked like Lady Justice speaking under her blindfold. But don't worry, the repercussions and consequences will be too much money of us to bear.
Understood. Understood. But not to shift off the focus too much. I understand we've had a discussion. I guess that could also come back in. But with regard to agriculture, I'll be honest. Not only in terms of DSH, but just the Labour Party has hotel projects like Royalton and Harbour Club. It has the one in Soufrière that Choiseul, the Prime Minister, is taking credit for, and the Range taking credit for in Black Bay and in Canals. But he seems to be more of a Minister of Tourism now than even when he was Minister for Tourism, because as Minister for Tourism, he never managed to add one hotel room to the island. Right? Now, my point, the reason that I say that now is that it looks like the whole of St. Lucia has been turned into a hotel. So for you as a man in terms of agriculture, how do you see us even fitting in beyond being the slaves of whoever's purchasing from the farmers at whatever price that they want, corporate domination of agricultural production and poultry and everything else? How do you see this working out, or can the situation be rescued?
It can be rescued. I believe when we were in office, we understood very early that St. Lucia cannot compete when it comes to price. You can't produce lettuce cheaper than Miami and so on. We may not be able to compete in terms of that. And we know that a large quantity of the imports into St. Lucia in terms of food, that goes to the hotels. So clearly, you're talking about possibly a $200 and something million industry in terms of supplying food to the hotels, basic food like lettuce, cucumbers, and so on. We recognize also that you will always have the companies like we are seeing now, depending on which government, trying to vertically integrate and cutting out the small farmers and so on. But we know we have one advantage. In terms of livestock, we know that this is a country that does not generally vaccinate its animals, and the quality of our meat is possibly some of the best in the whole world, that we don't use antibiotics like other countries do. So we have an advantage. We know that when we were in office, we worked with the feed mill in Vieux to produce feed that is already at the European standard. So the feed that is being produced in the feed mill in Vieux, as far as I knew when I left office as a minister, that feed did not have hormones and all of those antibiotics. So we knew we had an advantage. So we could have used that to leverage in the tourism market. And we also know that the crops that we produce, we can produce those crops at a level that will see less toxicity, less chemicals, and so on. So while we can't compete on price, we can compete in the market based on food safety and based on nutrition. And that is where we were going. That is why we went into the schools, and we had an improved school feeding program based on improving the kitchens. Kitchens got new refrigerators, new greenhouses, new water tanks, and then we were taking that connection with the schools and the farmers so that family farms would be connected to foods that are going into the schools. You heard the UWP talk about increasing the school feeding program. That's a lot of foolishness. They know nothing about how to improve school feeding. Our approach was to improve nutrition, but also to improve the connection between the school and the family farm. And we went all around from Castries. We improved the kitchen at Marchand, at Bellevue, at the Vieux Primary School, brand new kitchen and so on, and 13 other schools in St. Lucia. So our approach was to work on food security, ensuring that food safety is key, and that we can compete in that area. I don't see this happening with the current government.
Good afternoon. You're a final caller. Lost that call. We'll try to take one more call. But, I mean, personally, I don't see, when I see these guys making decisions, for example, what you're speaking of seems to have implications for healthcare because, in terms of things like cancers and all of the artificial products. And every day I get another WhatsApp video showing of some artificial product, Chinese rice that doesn't boil and powdered cheese or cheese that doesn't, this, that, and the other. So between education and also the health sector, there was impact. Good afternoon. You are final caller. This is Politically Incorrect.
Bon après-midi, Chris. Bon après-midi pour M. Moussa.
Bon après-midi.
M. Moussa, comment vous savez, moi, really désapprêté avec ce bail-là quand un pays, ça, ou ça. Et que les gens aient dit ça. Moi, ça voulait pas parti, c'était un parti qui était libéré, je sais plus, from esclavage. Mais ça, après, dit ça, nous avons vu, pas qu'on nous dans esclavage. Mais tout cas, ça. Nous mettons un premier ministre, c'est ça, monsieur, voulait faire, c'est ça qu'il a fait. Même si mon relais, même si danser, même si mater, même si rouler, c'est ça, Bouglani, l'idée pour faire, c'est ça qu'il a fait. Qui ça? Qui manière les partis a fait mobiliser Jean Setlissi pour attirer géo, parce que nous savons, mainstream media à présent, tout ça, les sides, premier ministre, c'est pour qui ça, mais ou quoi, toute manière, nous avons mettre dans bon light. Donc, qui ça les parti à même, on ça, c'est une qui opposition, pas de médias les sides. Donc, pour ça, try pour encourager cette liste pour que ça fait un pays. Merci bien.
Thank you.
Merci, Anchaï. Mende, ça qui est plus important, c'est l'éducation, avec pour nous aller plus à dire dans ces communes, ces cas-là, parler avec nous, pour expliquer qui ça a fait un pays et qui manière ça a fait un pays qui a affecté. Le docteur Kenny Anthony était Premier ministre. Nous, quand les partis, toutes les années, qui a produit un pamphlet, qui a dit que ça, gouvernement a fait, et comme ça. Avec à présent, nous avons l'autre mode de communication. Nous avons tout le monde ni téléphone, tout le monde ni internet, avec Facebook, et comme ça. Mais aussi, nous avons pour garder dans ces modes-là, nous avons ni longtemps. Longtemps, chaque ces modes-là, c'est aller parler avec moun, avec moucho, qui manière ces bagages ça a affecté yo. Là, il y a chaque moun qui toublé. Yo toublé parce que Premier ministre la dit un bail aujourd'hui, demain il dit un autre bail, après demain il dit un autre bail. Et ça c'est un bail qui esprit, Premier ministre la fait esprit parce que il voulait toubler mon pays. Comme ça, moi pour répondre question, les partis nous a décidé, les partis qui pour faire plus chaque plus travail, qui prend plus la souhait, qui prend plus parler, plus expliquer parce que moun pas fin ça pourquoi? Parce que le gouvernement a dit c'est figue qui a sauvé le pays. Ici, quelqu'un a dit tout le monde a planté figue. Il a dit l'argent bam là, c'est figue qui pour aider. Là, nous savons que nous, gourmet Black Secretary, c'est nous, yon qui a voué figue aller l'autre pays. Avec nous, quitter l'huile by pharma, nous quitter différents sujets qui a aidé. Mais le Premier ministre a autant un budget. Le Premier ministre a dit c'est après ça, c'est ça qui a commencé. Et pharma savent la ni pharma qui ni tank glo, la ni pharma qui jeune lui lek bail comme ça. Comme ça, manière nous ka opérer un pays à présent, c'est en manière moun toublé parce que le gouvernement a dit on bail aujourd'hui, il dit Tio Akin kay fait restructure voilà pas quoi, mais à présent il a dit Tio Akin kay fait mais nous kay payer vie l'argent. Comme ça moun toublé. Et moi d'accord avec vous, c'est un chai travail nous kay ni pour faire pour éduquer moun, pour faire moun savent ça calé. Et dernier bail moi kay dire ça. Là, nous avons dit que nous ramenons papier, nous ramenons documents, parce que chaque monde dit que nous avons tué ces gens qui côté pour aller pour saquer document.
Okay, folks, because we went over time, and obviously I wish we had even more time, I'm going to forego the moment of the day, but I'm asking once again, especially for the media, if you all can organize, like I said, a media tour of the entire affected areas of DSH, and maybe even people, various stakeholders to speak toward it. Thank you very much for coming up. I know that we only touched the tip of the iceberg, yes, but I remember growing up and seeing agriculture as the headline story and everything for the last however many years, and since recent times, let's put it that way, it seems to have almost been the forgotten thing. So thanks again, and of course, folks, back tomorrow with more Politically Incorrect.
Thank you.